Bonjour, Kitamagin Ireland, Dijnikas, and welcome to this production of Social Studies Explorer. Today's episode, Citizenship, questions 11 to 19. Normally, we'll go in 10 question increments. It just so happened that questions 20, 21, 22 were all related. And instead of going with a dozen questions, I opted to go with 9. Our first question to look at, what is the economic system of the USA? And that is a capitalist or free market economy. This means that government has a limited role. People are basically allowed to try to open up a business if they think it'll be successful. This is different than a command economy where the government would tell you what you have to make, or bartering where you trade items. Under the rule of law, is anyone above the law? And the answer to that is a resounding no. In theory, all Americans are subject to the rules of the law. Now, obviously, there are some caveats as far as certain positions that have kind of worked their way into the system. But in theory, everybody should be subject to the law. There are 3 branches of government. The first one is executive. Examples of the executive would be the chief, the president, a mayor, a governor. And the executive's main job is to enforce the law. Legislative examples would include tribal council, Congress, city commission, the state legislature. Those are all the legislative. That's the lawmaking body. Judicial, that's the court system. And the highest court in the United States is the Supreme Court. You'll need to know that later. Who is in charge of the executive branch? Depends on your level of government. At the federal government, it is the president who is in charge of the executive branch. They oversee the people who oversee the different departments in that branch. At the tribal level, the chief executive is the chief. In the state of Michigan, it would be the governor. In many cities, it would be the mayor or township supervisor, depending on what levels of government you want to go to. Who makes federal law? That's Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. That's the key part, is federal law. There are differences between state law, federal law, tribal codes. Those are all somewhat separate, but at the United States federal level, it is Congress. 2 parts of that Congress, and you noticed them on the previous question, the Senate and the House of Representatives. How many U.S. senators are there? 100, 2 from each state. So as we add states, we would, in theory, add 2 more senators each time. We elect a senator for how many years? 6 years. And it's not a situation where senators all are elected at the same time in the same way that you would see representatives elected. Roughly a third of the Senate is up for re-election in every 2-year cycle. Finally, name a current U.S. Senator from Michigan. There are 2. One is Gary Peters, and the other is Debbie Stabenow. That reaches the conclusion of our Google slide presentation. At this point, you should go into the Google Classroom, and both on today and on Wednesday, you should use the Quizlet to practice with these questions. On Friday, we will have a brief assessment. I do check each week to see who's answered which questions correctly so that I can provide feedback to help you know the answers to all 100 questions with any luck. But at least, 60% of them by the end of the school year. If you haven't taken one of the previous week's assessments, I will be in contact with you, and we need to make sure that you take care of that so I can see where you're at and what I need to teach you as we go through this final stretch run of the academic year. So at this point, return to the Google Classroom to do the Quizlet and have a Minogishigad, Minwa, Pamapi.